G'day. There is real value in the truthiness of fictionalized history. Let me explain. Fictionalized history is essentially where you take something out of history, an event or a person, and you sprinkle on a little bit of fiction, a little bit of creative and poetic license, if you like, to try and make that story more relatable, more understandable, more relevant to a modern audience, perhaps. And I guess a great example of that would be some of these series that you see on Netflix, or movies that you see on Netflix, for example, like The Crown, which is the story of the British royal family. Now, the current series has just recently launched, and it's copped a bit of flack for historical inaccuracies. And that's led to a conversation about the role of fictionalized history. Because in a way, it's a lie, it's not a truth. But then the people who defend this version, this artistic version, this fictionalized version of history, will tell you that the truth is generally a fairly nuanced thing. Truth and reality are fairly nuanced, and it's pretty hard to get those nuances across in maybe a 10-episode series or a 2-hour movie. But by adding a little creative fiction around the story, as long as it's true to the overall message, it's actually a much better way to get that message across and to get a better understanding of the reality of history. Maybe not the truth of history, but the reality of history. And it's something that I heard Russell Brand talking about today, where he talked about the truthiness, which I think is a great word to describe it. Because it's not, strictly speaking, the truth, it's not the facts, but it actually really is reality, probably, if it's done well. And most people tend to say that this current series of The Crown is still getting the overall message across. It's not necessarily that 100% of the things that happen are factually correct, but the truthiness of it is still there. And I think the thing that they're coming across now is that the current series is about Margaret Thatcher's times and Princess Diana's times, which there's people alive today that still recall those events, and so they're poking holes in the history, and the facts of the history. Whereas in previous series of the same show, they were talking so far back that people weren't necessarily alive to question it. So I think in a world of fake news, I think it's an interesting perspective to think about the truthiness of fictionalized history, because if you really want to tell a story, you've got to get it relevant to today's audience, you've got to get the audience engaged, and I think a little bit of fiction around the facts is probably a good way to do it. Again, in light of the world of fake news that we live in, and that fake news era that has been created around us, I just think it's an interesting perspective on a Friday. Alrighty, that is it for today. I do thank you for your time, and I will be back again tomorrow. See ya.